Archaeology's massive problem, hidden from textbooks. It's the first time. Archaeology has a problem, and if we're being honest, it's a massive one that most textbooks prefer to gloss over. It's the problem of the first time. When we look at the rise of the great ancient powers, we expect to see a slow, messy crawl toward progress. We expect to find beta versions of cities, failed experiments in agriculture, or primitive attempts. But that's not what the dirt tells us. Instead, every major civilization on our planet seems to appear fully formed, as if someone simply flipped a switch and turned on the lights. Sumer, Egypt, the Indus Valley, they didn't just emerge. They arrived. They showed up already knowing how to map the stars, how to divert rivers for crops, how to bake bricks, and how to write complex legal codes. No developmental history, no trial and error, just a sudden, inexplicable explosion of high culture. The standard story we've all been taught is the staircase model. It's a neat, comfortable narrative. Hunter-gatherers slowly settle down. Farming begins, villages turn into towns, and eventually, over thousands of years, you get a city. It's logical, it's tidy, and it's almost certainly incomplete. The archaeological record doesn't just fail to cooperate with this model, sometimes it flat out contradicts it. Take Göbekli Tepe, for instance. Discovered in southern Turkey back in 1994, this site is the ultimate archaeological headache. It's a complex of massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons, carved with exquisite reliefs of lions, scorpions, and vultures. Here's the kicker. It's dated to roughly 11,500 years ago. That is 6,000 years before Stonehenge and 7,000 years before. The first Great Pyramid was even a thought in an Egyptian architect's mind. According to every standard theory, these people shouldn't exist. They were supposed to be simple hunter-gatherers. They didn't have agriculture, they didn't have metal tools, and they certainly didn't have the social hierarchy required to organize hundreds of workers for a massive construction project. Yet, they built a structure of extraordinary precision. And then, they did something even more baffling. They didn't just abandon it, they buried it, intentionally. Archaeologists confirmed it was filled in by human hands, bucket by bucket, with clean dirt and rubble. Why would a civilization go through the Herculean effort? Why build your most sophisticated monument only to hide it from the world forever? We have to look at the stories. The Sumerians had a concept that sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel. The Me, pronounced like May. These were essentially the divine blueprints of reality. In Sumerian literature, the Me were a set of cosmic rules governing everything, from kingship and priesthood to the art of metalworking, writing, and even musical instruments. They weren't inventions created by human genius. The texts are very clear. The Me were held by the Anunnaki, specifically by Enki, the god of wisdom and the subterranean waters. They were gifts, or perhaps software updates, selectively handed down to humanity to jumpstart civilization. But there was a time before. The Atrahasis epic and the Eridu Genesis describe a world where humanity existed in a much more primitive state. Then, they describe a catastrophic reset, the Great Flood. This wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a deliberate erasure. The gods decided to wipe the hard drive and start over. The lament texts describe cities returned to clay. It's as if the gods decided to wipe the hard drive and start over with a new operating system. The Sumerian king list serves as the ultimate before and after snapshot. It lists kings who reigned for tens of thousands of years. Then, the flood happens, and the kingship descends from heaven again. Suddenly, the reigns are human-scaled. There is a hard break. What was lost? The texts suggest that in the antediluvian world, there was direct open contact between humans and the Anunnaki. It was a world where the divine walked among us. After the flood, that contact ended. The Me were redistributed selectively. Certain knowledge was withheld, and the memory of the first version of humanity was buried under the silt. This is where the science starts to get uncomfortably close to the myth. In 1997, geologists proposed the Black Sea flood hypothesis. The Mediterranean surged through the Bosphorus with the force of 200 Niagara Falls. It broke into a freshwater lake. This wasn't a slow rise. It was a violent, permanent submergence of an entire basin. Whatever existed there was gone in an instant. Fast forward a few years, and Dr. Robert Ballard, the man who found the Titanic, takes his equipment to the floor of the Black Sea. What did he find? Preserved wooden structures and carved stones at depths that were once dry land thousands of years ago. We are talking about potential settlements sitting hundreds of feet underwater. Is this the lost world the Sumerians were remembering? Dr. Irving Finkel of the British Museum is one of the few people on the planet who can read cuneiform as easily as you read the news. He acknowledges that these flood narratives aren't just fairy tales, they reflect real, traumatic geological events. As he puts it, the floods happened. The question is what was lost in them. That's the question that should keep us up at night. Not what we built afterward, but what existed before. Think about the implications. We have a confirmed catastrophic flood 7,500 years ago. We have Göbekli Tepe, a sophisticated site that was intentionally buried right around the same era of transition. We have the Sumerian texts claiming that civilization was a reset, controlled by higher powers who erased the previous version. The
Cultural
standard academic
transmission is a
explanation
key
is
concept,
gradual
but it's
cultural
complex.
transmission. The
There
idea
are
is that
different
knowledge
views on
passed
how it
between
works.
nomadic groups for
I'm
centuries.
not entirely sure.
But for some reason, they never left a single shard of pottery, a single foundation, or a single grave that shows this progress. It's a bit like saying a modern smartphone was developed by people who never once built a radio or a basic telephone. It requires a massive leap of faith. It requires us to believe that writing, mathematics, and agriculture were all invented independently. At the same time, by people who weren't talking to each other, yet ended up with remarkably similar systems. The Sumerian tablets offer a much simpler, albeit more unsettling explanation. They tell us that we aren't the first. They tell us that something was erased, and then something was restored, but only what the gods deemed necessary. If that's true, then the entire timeline of human history we see in museums is actually version 2.0. We are living in the aftermath of a reboot. It makes you look at those ancient ruins a little differently, doesn't it? They aren't just the beginning of our story. They might be the carefully curated remains of what was allowed to survive. So, what do you think was really happening in that lost era before the flood? Were we more advanced than we realize? Or were we just part of a different kind of experiment? What do you think existed before? Tell us in the comments. Subscribe to Beyond Explained. New mysteries every week.